Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Easy Conversations, a podcast about having easy conversations. I'm your host, Furkan Dandia. I'm really excited about this week's episode with Mark Williams. Mark is a published author and keynote speaker. He's also an international campaigner. He co founded International Father's Mental Health Day, and he has spoken on television and radio stations around the world. Mark has also published many articles on paternal mental health. In 2012, Mark was awarded Inspirational Father of the Year and Local Hero at the Pride of Britain Awards. On World Mental Health Day in 2016, Mark was invited to meet the royal family, and in 2019, he was awarded the Point of Light Award by the Prime Minister. In this episode, Mark talks about his own struggles with mental health, especially after the birth of his son. He also talks about all the work he's continuing to do to bring awareness around paternal mental health. I hope you can get as much as I did from this episode. If at the end of the episode you can leave a review, I would truly appreciate it. Well, welcome to the podcast, Mark. Thanks for joining today. I appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule, and I'm really excited to hear about your journey and the work you're doing around mental health with parents. I think the subject is really relevant considering the time we are in right now with the pandemic, and just in general around the mental health issues we've been seeing and talking about more lately. And I'm hoping we can get this message out to other folks as well. So, welcome again, and happy to have you here.
No, thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's all about raising awareness, and also that if it is fathers struggling out there, then there's other fathers who have been in that situation as well. So yeah, definitely.
For
Yeah, so
sure.
thank you.
And yeah, you're welcome. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity, Mark, to introduce yourself, kind of where you're located, just so the listeners know, and what kind of work you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of International Father's Mental Health Day. Actually, co-founder now because Dr. Daniel Singley in America, he's a founder because obviously we wanted to make it international.
Hmm.
And yeah, TEDx speaker, keynote speaker, published author, done journals, campaigning mostly for all parents to be supported for their mental health. So fathers have been excluded for a number of years.
Hmm.
And I'm from South Wales in the Bridgend Valleys in the United Kingdom. So if you can, I hope we can all understand me okay, because I'll
Yeah.
try and speak very slow.
No, that's exciting. And we connected on Instagram. I think for me, I was inspired about some of the stuff you've been talking about and the content you've been sharing around father's mental health. So that was definitely an area that I wanted to touch on in the podcast. So I'm glad you're here. And the fact that, yeah, I mean, fortunately, we are in a time where technology doesn't have many limits in communication. So we can do this over Zoom. This is awesome.
Great.
So you mentioned an author. So you've got a book out there. Maybe share a little bit about this book.
Yeah, so I wrote the book about my memoir, about my experience of being a new dad and how that impacted on my mental health. My wife had severe postnatal depression or birth trauma, what we know now. And got another book with an academic book with Dr. Jane Hanley, who I work with. And coming from a background where unfortunately left school at 15 with no qualifications because I had an undiagnosed disorder called ADHD.
Hmm.
So that was only actually diagnosed when I was 40 years of age. So there's a lot of parents before they become dads got a past history of anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, ASD, OCD. It goes on and on
Hmm.
before they become dads. And then, of course, the lack of sleep can have an impact on your mental health as well. So yeah, there's various reasons why fathers can struggle during this time.
Yeah, and are those all the topics you touched on in your book?
Yeah, I've obviously I can take it back when I first started really. And like I said, my story really starts from school. Unfortunately, I had a lot of low self-esteem came from school, unfortunately, because I was very hyperactive. I'm still hyperactive now. I'm 46, but not as much as it was then. And couldn't concentrate, on lessons. If I'm really interested in something, I can really hyper focus on it. But certainly academically at that time, I was didn't know I had dyslexia, a form of dyslexia as well. So there's loads of issues around that time. Luckily for me, I went to the youth club at 8 years of age. My mother took me there to run off steam, and I built confidence in the youth club, and represent my country in the sport as well. So yeah, so I gained a lot of good self-esteem as well,
Hmm.
from being in youth club and stuff. So
Yeah. So you mentioned, dyslexia and ADHD were some of the challenges you had. And now, obviously you're a father and in your 40s. Like, how were you able to navigate some of those challenges and being able to work through them, and to be able to do the work you're doing now?
yeah, yeah. So I self-managed all my life, the ADHD, and but it wasn't until my wife went for a traumatic birth, Michelle,
Hmm.
and 22 hours labour. I remember the doctors come rushing in, and they said, "Mr. Williams, your wife needs emergency C-section. We need to get into theatre quick." And it was the first time I actually had a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack like that ever since.
Hmm.
And I've worked in sick units. I would witness horrific things since then, and
Hmm.
nothing worse than thinking your wife and baby is going to die in front of you. So yeah, I was totally overwhelmed. I couldn't. Yeah, it was a big factor which impacted on me later on. But it wasn't until my wife was diagnosed with severe postnatal depression. She was in crisis teams. I didn't know nothing about mental health, let alone postnatal depression. So when you get a health professional saying your wife's got postnatal depression, as a father, you start thinking, is it me? Is it anything I've done? Does she want a baby? So you start overthinking every scenario. And, I had to give up work for 6 months, no money coming in. I was self-employed as a salesperson then, and mortgage to pay. I was using credit cards. I couldn't tell my wife how I was feeling because I didn't want to impact on her mental health either. So like a lot of men, they suppress those feelings, and that was coming out in different behaviors, like, using more alcohol,
Hmm.
avoiding situations. And I didn't initially bond with my son initially. That gradually grew because I was home alone with my son when
Hmm.
my wife was unwell in bed sometimes. So there was a lot of good things came out of something bad as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you touched on a lot of things that I want to tap into, but one of the things you mentioned, you were obviously suppressing your emotions, and unfortunately, when we do that, it comes out in unhealthy ways. At any point, did you consider seeking help, or did you seek help? How were you able to kind of work through all of that, considering you were alone in it, right?
Yeah, no, it's tough. And as we know, even the lack of sleep can have an impact on your mental health. So
Hmm.
I think what happened was I was more concerned about my wife, Michelle, and I was getting suicidal thoughts around about the 4 or 5 month mark. Never made a plan to take my life, but it was the thoughts, I was
Hmm.
getting, and I just struggled on, and it wasn't until a few years later when, unfortunately, I lost my grandfather with dementia, very close to my family, and my mother was diagnosed with cancer in a short space of time. My mother's fine now,
Hmm.
and because I hadn't dealt with everything else, it was like massive timeline of trauma, everything I hadn't dealt with, and basically I was physically fit during that time. I was doing a lot of kickboxing. I was physically fit, but mentally it was actually impacting on my physical health,
Hmm.
and I had no choice. But I didn't get the help because I changed my career in 2007, going into the youth sector and then mental health. And I thought if I went to the GP, it'd be on my notes,
Hmm.
and I would never get a job in mental health. So
Yeah.
that was another reason why I didn't seek help. But it took a breakdown or breakthrough, I call it, because my body just basically shut down. I couldn't
Yeah.
fight it anymore.
Yeah. So then what were the things you did to be able to work through it, and kind of, be able to work on yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Things I wish I learned in school, like CBT and mindfulness, and they were good positive coping skills. But I done a lot of therapy, and what I will say is sometimes people say therapy doesn't work. Sometimes I always say, look, try a different counselor, and you may not get a rapport with that person. So luckily enough, I had a good counselor, and we just talked through everything, things I had never talked about ever before,
Hmm.
and that was the turning point. I was medicated at the time as well because obviously I couldn't function, I couldn't take the information in,
Hmm.
and so I gradually came off the medication slowly, But what I did, I put the positive coping skills in place as I was gradually coming off the medication, and as well, So yeah, I learned so many, even walking in nature. I've gone back to that since COVID, working from home,
Hmm.
and yeah, trying to make my life not so overwhelmed. It is at the moment with Instagram, but
Yeah.
I've opened up a bit of a can of worms there. But on a positive, like I said, I love what I'm doing. If it helps one person, then that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's kind of the way I look at it is if we can all aspire to help one person, then collectively we're impacting many lives. So some of the positive coping skills you mentioned, like, so I guess if people are struggling in a similar fashion, what were some of the coping skills you were using, and are you still using them today? And how do you hold yourself accountable to stick to them?
Yeah, I tend to write my thoughts on paper
Hmm.
and what thoughts have come to the forefront, and I work through my thoughts. And as you know, there's so many thoughts coming through every day, and
Yes.
so I tend to in write them down and work
Hmm.
through those thoughts. And I don't tend to mind read anymore. I don't. If I'm talking to somebody and worrying what I think, and it's impossible. You can't keep everyone happy, but as long as you're doing the right thing and the best you can do, that's all you can do. And I got a board behind me, and I got a visual board. So I write it down and find out what I need to do, not what I have to do as well. So, I'll go through those things and be gratitude to myself. Be happy what I've got as well. Things that the simple things as well, like walking this morning. Down the
Yeah.
sea. Those simple things sometimes can help your mental health as well.
For sure. Yeah. And for, I guess, for the listeners, I hear a lot of commonality in terms of the work that most people are doing. So, the writing the thoughts on paper is like journaling, uh, you know, and then you're also finding gratitude for all the simple things, as you mentioned, and then taking that time to ground yourself either through walking in nature or mindfulness, right? So these are all techniques that most therapists or folks in this field are suggesting for people, and those are all the things that you've adopted and they've had a positive impact in your life. I guess one of the things you mentioned, you had a sales background, so I'm quite
Yeah,
fascinated.
yeah.
How does a person who is in sales, high pressure job, you're constantly asked to deliver, how do you go from that to the work you're doing today? And I'm sure a lot of it was inspired by when your son was born and kind of the challenges you and your wife were facing. But how did you make that transition?
Yeah, those skills actually help me in mental health as well, because the communication skills and the listening skills. Unfortunately, not everyone in the health profession, especially in the UK, they got the knowledge. But yeah, I think I was actually open up with the parents, and they would tell me, I was sharing my experience, and then listening and communicating, and they would tell me all this. And that's why I've got a lot of information is from the parents, where they probably wouldn't have told the health professionals, in the UK. So yeah, my background, yeah, it was very pressured,
Hmm.
and I wasn't the same person going back. I couldn't take the pressures anymore, which I had done before I became a dad. So it was like something had broken and couldn't take those pressures. So gradually I did leave. I was probably earning more money 22 years ago than I am now, definitely. But it's one thing I've learned is purpose, and everyone should have some sort of purpose, whether it's
Hmm.
big, small, it doesn't matter. I think
Hmm.
that was the real push in my recovery, because it was when I spoke to a man in the gym side by side, and it was about 8 weeks in my recovery. And I said, "Can I borrow the weights?" And he said, "Yes, I'm going to NHS Prams, which was a service for mums with postnatal depression." And I said to him, "My wife had postnatal depression." And he said, "No way." And I said, I probably told him more things in 5 minutes than I told my best friends, because he
Hmm.
related, he understood. And from that moment, we set up a group, and it just went from there. Then started going on TV, radio, Met Royal Family. Then there's a film being made about the book, which is starting tomorrow. So loads of good things that come up with something bad as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just a conversation, and that's what we got to be doing in mental health. It's just have a conversation. We all got mental health. Unfortunately, sometimes it ain't so good. So
Hmm.
just have a conversation.
Yeah, no, I like the points you've made. I think part of the goal I've set here with this podcast too is normalizing the conversations around mental health, right? And we can't support each other if we're not talking about it, or if we're not talking to each other. And I hope that we start doing that more, because like you said, we all have our own mental health challenges and everyone's struggling in their own way. But we can help each other, and sometimes all it takes is listening to another person. It can make a huge difference, because we are storing so much of it inside, and we just need to,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Definitely.
yeah, so your book, like, I love the concept. Maybe do you mind sharing a little bit about the book? What's in it? Like, I know you said it's a bit of a memoir, but what's the message? What do you talk about in the book for people that haven't read it?
Yeah, I wish I knew another father who experienced guilt and not good enough and all these feelings that I didn't know that fathers can experience, even struggle to bond with their children. I mean, it's loads of everything a mum's worry about, of course, dads can worry about too. So it's a lot of things like the pressures of fatherhood as well, especially, in that early years, your lifestyle change, your identity change, everything changes.
Hmm.
And so it goes through a journey really. And like I mentioned, it was just a turning point where I spoke to another gentleman in the gym. And if I didn't have a conversation side by side with that gentleman, I wouldn't be I won't be speaking with you today, definitely. And I
Hmm.
would have probably wouldn't have known I suffered really, because it was never diagnosed with any sort of PTSD or PND as they call it. So PTSD, as we know, is an anxiety is post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's actually an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And there's nothing worse thinking your wife and baby's going to die in that situation. So a lot of fathers don't even know they're experiencing PTSD from and some fathers I've spoken to have gone through far worse than me, a loss of a child, but they've never been supported for their mental health.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it takes me through a journey really, and I just wanted something good to come out of something bad. And so, as we know, mental health sometimes when we talk about it could be a bit, yeah, But I just wanted something positive to come up with something. And my wife's experience as well. Now, my wife works in mental health and youth as a youth worker as well.
Hmm.
So both of us have changed our careers from coming from a bad point in our lives.
Yeah, no, that's very inspiring, and I think it's very noble that you guys have taken the experience that you went through, and definitely, like you said, turned it into something positive where you guys are giving back and trying to help others, where you may not have had that help yourself. So that's very noble. So what is the work you're doing now? Like, how are you helping others through their own challenges of parenthood? And are you strictly working with fathers, or are you guys, you and your wife, also working with just parents in general and helping them understand some of the mental health challenges that come with being a parent?
Yeah, well, the group lasted for 3 years, and I found that if it got too big, I had to pass because I was doing it voluntary, and it got passed over to another charity. But then I went down a more, public speaking because I thought I'd have a bigger ripple effect if I was going to get into all parts of UK. And I've actually spoken in Seattle as well with the Postpartum Support
Hmm.
International and done overseas work. But I think that's the big thing. It was a ripple effect, and then we in lockdown I did a report which was over 10 years gathering
Hmm.
report, and the Prime Minister is actually in the hands of the Prime Minister, and we opening a parliamentary group this year. So we've already changed policies in the UK,
Hmm.
and fathers are recognised and need support. So we are on the right path, So it's a case of policy changing, and which is going to have even a bigger impact. And yeah, it's good. It's all good. And I love it. I love what I'm doing. It's nice to see things are changing, but unfortunately, since COVID, we've seen a massive increase in fathers wanting our support because they're totally isolated, and especially in the UK, they're not even able to go to scans.
Hmm.
Loads of factors, different pressures than when I was a new dad.
Right.
So yeah, it's been good. It's I'm trying to inspire other people, even in my community, that just because you have dyslexia or ADHD, you can write an academic book as long
Hmm.
as you've got support from other people, what you have through Jane.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess so I mean, that's amazing that you've been able to bring that systemic change in the UK. But for other parts of the world, like if men are also feeling the same pressures and challenges of being fathers, what are some things you can suggest, tools, some areas of awareness? Like, what are some things that you can share with folks that are interested in and don't know where to get help or just don't know where to start?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in California, you got Dr. Daniel Singley. So he does a lot of online
Hmm.
work with fathers, and it's on the Postpartum Support International. So they are American based, and they're
Yeah.
doing fantastic work. So he's Daniel's trying to raise awareness out there as well. And there's a few doctors as well, like David Devine. He's from New York, so David's already gone. He went through it as well, So yeah, he's got a personal experience and as well as being a doctor. So yeah, there is a lot of. I wouldn't say there's a lot of support out there, but there's people who will understand what's you're going through as well. So I would definitely recommend you looking at the Postpartum Support International.
Okay. And what are some things that people can do, like actual like tools? And I know you've touched on some things that you've done yourself, but if you wanted to give some guidance to fathers, like what are some actual like tools that you can share?
Yeah, definitely. It does look different in fathers as well sometimes because, like I mentioned, more drinking. If you find you are drinking more since the pregnancy or since the baby's been born, these are classic signs to look out for. So it could be, for instance, avoiding, overworking, overeating, undereating, loads of different factors. If your personality has changed during what they call the perinatal period, which is the antenatal period, as
Hmm.
well as the postnatal period, you know, it's really worth checking in with your health professional as well. So and it's just to educate mums on you as well, because to look out for the signs as well, because if your partner's not behaving differently, because a lot of relationships unfortunately do end because of that, because
Hmm.
men come, changing nappy for various reasons and get intrusive thoughts. So I would definitely, like I said, and what I will say is what works for me might not work for you.
Hmm.
So I'm more person centered. So like I said, what really works for me is sometimes the most simplest things. And purpose is a big thing. You know, I think personally, sometimes a lot of fathers are trapped in their workplace. They already got anxiety and now they got a new baby to provide for.
Hmm.
So there's loads of different pressures, but if you can unravel it, like I've done, and find out what works for you, just keep that going, because even social media can become overwhelming sometimes, and seeing
Hmm.
everyone doing happy things, and unfortunately, as a family, as a dad, you're not doing those things. So sometimes it's about taking yourself away from those situations.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think yeah, that's an interesting thing you mentioned because social media is often very deceptive because you see others enjoying their lives and you feel you're stuck, like you said, whether you're stuck in your career or you're stuck at home with your child, you feel like you're missing out on life. And it's interesting because I went through a similar almost like a shifting moment in my life when my son was born, and it was the same thing. I was working a corporate job, with aspirations to do many things within my career. But then when my son was born, it was understanding, okay, well, do I just want to be remembered as this corporate guy, or do I want to be remembered for something more? And how am I making a difference in this world that my son's coming into? And it was a similar question of purpose, trying to identify my purpose, like what is my purpose and how am I going to make a difference in this world? And
Absolutely.
and part of it was giving back to people, right? And like the work you've been doing has been phenomenal, and that's kind of the journey I'm on right now, is to be able to make a difference in people's lives, bring awareness, share my own story, and use tools and resources that we can help and support each other with. And that's an interesting concept, the concept of purpose. And you mentioned for you that awakening really happened when you had that conversation with this gentleman at the gym. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so describe your purpose. Like, what is your purpose now? Like, and where do you see yourself like in the next 10, 15 years? Like, what are you trying to achieve and what are you trying to do?
Yeah, so the biggest one is the World Health Organization, which has nothing on new fathers' mental health or
Hmm.
paternal mental health. They have on mums. So that's the big one, really. I want to make sure that there's information on there, and because it's not just a UK concern, it's a global concern.
Yeah.
We got high risk in suicide in new dads. Or we know the global what the World Health Organization says about that, but there's no screening. So if we can get some information on there, that'd be the best one. But for me, the other thing is things have already happening in the UK, and we got a parliamentary group in Westminster. So all the MPs have seen my report now, and obviously COVID has taken a bit of hold on that at the
Hmm.
moment. So I think it'll come to a point where I'll always be doing the father's work, whether it's in a consultancy role or speaking. But I think it's good we touched on. I think sometimes I need to grow as a person as well. I think I like to look into more coaching and saying to people, look, why can't you do what I've done? Write a book or change things. Because I think you mentioned, like you said, giving things away and helping other people. I think I like to do something with somebody and have acknowledgement that I've helped them to be even more successful than me,
Hmm.
in a different field. I think
Hmm.
that's what I want to get a bit of purpose in next. I think so. That's my next chapter. I think it's definitely. I want to do more. Yeah, like work. Well-being, motivation stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there any more books on the horizon?
Yeah, yeah. Funny enough, I got third one. We just signed a contract now. Actually, 2 days. Well, I signed mine yesterday,
Hmm.
and I'm doing a self-published book on ADHD and fatherhood, and all the money's going to go to charity for that one, definitely. So you don't make loads of money unless you're J.K. Rowling, but it's probably the time and effort you put into it.
Yeah.
But it's just yeah, it's just there. So yeah, I think I like to carry on doing something around motivation
Yeah.
and using our corporate background. Same as that can be really. I think it's interesting what you just say about corporate background and the skills we've got, that they can be so transferred into mental health, like I've just
Hmm.
said. So yeah, it's a lot of motivation. Because the first book I actually read was Chicken Soup for the Soul,
Hmm. Yeah. I
and
haven't
this
heard of
book by Jack Canfield, American author, and that was in '98, and that changed my life. I think, because I hadn't really read a book up to that point.
that.
Really
Hmm.
changed my life. So yeah, I like to do more stuff like that. Really.
No, that's amazing. And congratulations on the new deal for the book. That's exciting. There's a couple of things you touched on that I want to explore a little bit further. So one of the things, why is there not a lot of focus on the mental health kind of awareness when it comes to fathers? Now, is it just because we haven't had the information, or it's because the expectations with men are different, or just the perception we have of men is different, that men are expected to be strong and hold it together, and not express emotions? Like, why has it taken so long for us to come to this awareness and start finally looking into this subject?
Yeah, I think well, I know in the UK, like I've been doing it over 10 years, and can imagine the stigma around, dads with postnatal depression or birth trauma. What's dad's got to be depressed about? He didn't give birth to baby. So it's always been a myth that it's hormonal, and any doctor and professor will tell you that's not really strong evidence. Really,
Hmm.
it's there's a hormone change. Your father's testosterone actually lowers during this time, but the key factors is past history. It could be lack of sleep, money worries, guilt, all the thoughts mum gets, dads get, in
Hmm.
different ways. So and like you said, my work's never about taking the attention away from mum, never has been. It's saying that sometimes it's the dad was struggling, and that can impact on mum's mental health.
Hmm.
So we start to see, especially in the UK, the early years, the child's development, how important that is, and they actually realizing now that if dad is struggling, that can have an impact. I'm not saying, like, me and my wife had depression, and my son is thriving now. He's in school, he's in well, he's playing sport, and he's happy. And the good thing is about that, we have conversations about mental health with my son. So
Hmm.
he's more likely to open up to me. Unfortunately, I didn't have those conversations with my father. But I think in the UK, last 4 years, I think mental health been talked about a lot more than it has for the last 2,000 years, whatever, or more,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So we see a big shift. And I think next generation as well, they will actually get it more now because, as we know, the education on social media is getting out there. People
Hmm.
understand it better. So I think, yeah, it's been various reasons why, but I think the academics is it's been research papers for years, but unfortunately, people like us, we've never been able to access them. So
Hmm.
that's why I've been pushing this content out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think another thing you touched on was having that open conversation with our children, and modeling that behavior because same thing growing up, especially as boys, we weren't encouraged to express our emotions, or anytime we cried, we were told that, hey, you're a boy or you're a man, stop crying, right? And I think by modeling that behavior for our children, we're setting that foundation. And I think the message I want listeners to have, or even most people, right? Like, just don't shame your kids for having emotions, because if we're not giving them that outlet or the ability to express themselves, then it just gets bottled up, and unfortunately it shows up in different ways.
That's exactly, exactly what I would put it. Yeah, definitely, definitely. I always encourage my son to open up and just have a conversation. And like I said, my my parents are great. My uncles and grandfathers were
Yeah.
great, but they're from a mining community. You know what I mean? So very much, down the pits,
Hmm.
taking coal all day. And yeah, it was never that. If we had a problem, let's go to the pub and have a drink, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, we just created negative coping skills over the years. But like I said, schools should be educating people about good mental health and putting positive coping skills in place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the last piece, you mentioned COVID. Obviously, nobody saw this coming, right? And we've been in a challenging situation, and it's almost been a year. And lockdowns in different parts of the world, and not being able to get out, see friends or family, or have conversations. Obviously, that's posing different mental health challenges. What is some of the work you're doing in this space, especially around COVID, or what are some things you would recommend to people to be mindful of in this kind of uncertain time?
Yeah, definitely. And from a UK at the moment, even as at present, we looking at going into lockdown. So isolation has been a big factor.
Hmm.
I think I'd be honest, with you, it's worked better for myself than a lot of people because I used to be 4 o'clock in the morning up on a train to London and all over the place, and now
Hmm.
I'm working from home since March. But just give me a time to get out and get into nature more. And I think everyone's different, but I think the pressure that I've come across with fathers, especially in the UK, the uncertainty of work and yeah, they got a new baby coming in life and what the
Hmm.
world's gonna be like for them, and loads of different factors. But I think even today, I had a link about that. It's actually increased now, especially post-depression fathers, because now the pressures are even more than it was prior to since March. So we've seen a 10% increase at least from charities. The
Yeah.
fathers are struggling with their mental health. So yeah, I go back to saying I would definitely just speak to somebody, have a conversation. There's no shame. There's no shame. I wish I'd had the information now because a lot of
Yeah.
people worry what other people think.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. It's just being the best you can. But the more you struggle, the more your behaviors change, and obviously how your relationship, can suffer as well. So the quicker the help, the quicker the recovery. I always say that's always my motto. The quicker you speak out, the quicker that recovery will be.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for highlighting that there's really no shame in asking for help. Kind of the narrative I'm trying to change, is saying, it actually takes strength to ask for help. It shows that you are a stronger person, and again, don't be scared of what people will think, because I think everyone wants to support each other, especially in this time. It's funny that, when you look at it from a global perspective, this is probably the first time in our lives where we can all have something in common on a
Yeah,
global scale, right? and
yeah,
and this pandemic has impacted all of us, probably s- some less than others, but at the end of the day, we're all been impacted the same. It's changed our lives, and I think we can all relate to the challenges that have come out of this pandemic, and we should be able to relate and help each other out through this. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
I know it's great. Like you said, it's gonna be good year next year, guarantee. You gotta
Yeah.
be positive.
Yeah, and I think, you said, even in your case, what I want to highlight is, you've been able to find gratitude because now you're not commuting to work. You have time to do other things, right? And I think that's part of the narrative we also need to change for ourselves, is finding gratitude in the way our lives have changed, and for me too, I'm not able to get out and play sports like I used to, but it's given me more time to read books
Yeah.
or, just educate myself. And, you can find those positive opportunities in your life. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. So, you know,
It's funny you should say that because I've been with Michelle now 24 years, and it's
mhm,
only the last couple of weeks we've been playing chess together, and we actually love it. I've always played chess, I love online and stuff.
yeah,
And my wife is is actually a new chess player, like, and she beat me the other night because she's been so loves it. She's realized that she loves chess,
yeah,
and it's trying to find strategies to beat me. So like you said, that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for COVID. The report wouldn't have happened if it was from COVID, working from home. I wouldn't have lost weight from being at home because I was probably eating more jelly beans and on the motorway sort of thing. So like I said, a lot of good things have come out of something bad, but like I said, unfortunately, yeah, a lot of bad things have happened to other people, like
hmm
as we know. So yeah,
yeah, no, and it's just getting that help, and not waiting, right? Like you said, the sooner you can get that help and talk to someone, it will make a huge difference.
quicker the health, the quicker recovery.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I really want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story. And, all the work you're doing is phenomenal. So I just want to, show my appreciation because you are making a difference.
Oh,
Uh,
same with you. Yeah, definitely. That's what it's all about. Is at least one person will actually listen to this and get that education, and
yeah,
well, far more than one person. But what I mean is that one person we could help today. That's what it's all about, really. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, having going through this conversation made me realize that you and I have a lot in common. So I'm super excited to keep in touch with you and
Yeah.
see if we can find more opportunities to share the same message. But yeah, if people want to get a hold of you, Mark, what's the best way? Where are you?
Yeah.
Social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram, fathers slash underscore mental health, and pretty new to Instagram, but on Twitter, Mark Williams FMH, or if you just Google Mark Williams fathers mental health, and yeah, there's loads of different articles and things on there. So yeah, always happy to help.
Okay. And is there any last message you want to share before we're done here?
No, I think it's just like no shame, and do if the big man up is actually getting the help, like you just mentioned early
hmm
on. So don't suffer in silence, seek help, no shame, and get the help.
hmm No, that's amazing. Thank you again, Mark.
Take care. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that's the end of the podcast. This is the last episode before the holiday season. Please stay tuned as we'll be coming out with more episodes in the new year. I'm really excited about the guests that will be coming on the show, the stories they'll be sharing with mental health always being at the forefront. I'm also grateful for everyone else that's been on the show already, that's shared their story. I'm super, super humbled by the response I've received. I also want to thank everyone that's listened to the episodes, provided me with feedback, or even reached out to me to express their gratitude or how they've taken a message out of each and every episode. Again, it's very humbling. It just provides me with more encouragement. So, yeah, I'll keep doing this going into the new year. And with the holidays approaching, please stay safe. Enjoy your time, whether you're spending it with family, friends, or really close loved ones. I want to acknowledge that this year, 2020, has been very difficult and uncertain for a lot of us. In fact, everyone. And just to say it's been a challenging year would be an understatement. We've had to pivot along the way and figure things out one day at a time. So, take this holiday season to really sit, find some time to reflect, find gratitude in all the opportunities we've had, and being able to just look back on things and have a different perspective, and then set an intention for the new year. Going into the new year, what are your intentions? What's your purpose? Take that time to really focus on yourself. It is important. But yeah, stay tuned for more episodes in the new year, and I'm really excited to continue doing this.